Kevin Givens could be the next breakout defensive player for the 49ers. In 2020, Givens served primarily as an interior defensive line depth piece. Looking ahead to 2021, he's primed for a much greater role, possibly even a starting role. In fact, I would say it's likely that Givens is a starter in 2021. Looking at what the 49ers defensive line projects to be on base downs next season, you have Eric Armstead and Nick Bosa, assuming he fully recovers from his ACL tear, out on the edges. On the interior, you have Javon Kinlaw, and then a vacant spot. That spot was previously held by DJ Jones. It was Jones alongside Buckner on the 2019 defense, which was widely regarded as one of the best, if not the best, in the NFL. In this past year, it was Jones alongside Kinlaw. So if you look at what the 49ers like personnel-wise on base downs, they like to have that big defensive tackle paired with a smaller, more nimble defensive tackle, which Jones previously was and what Givens also is. What's very interesting about DJ Jones and Kevin Givens, although Jones was labeled as a starter each of the past 2 years, is that Givens was pretty much already playing as much as he was this year. If you look at their snap counts per game, Jones averaged 30 snaps per game. Givens averaged 29.7. So there was not a huge differential regarding playing time. What's very exciting to me about Kevin Givens is he's developing at a much quicker pace than Jones. And it seems like he can slide right in and be that starter on the interior of the defensive line. Jones is 6 foot even, 305 pounds, has a quick twitch, quick burst, getting off that line of scrimmage. Givens, similar build. He's 6'1", 285 pounds, and this past season he showed the ability to make plays. And it seems like he's developing at a much quicker pace than DJ Jones. If you look at DJ Jones, who was a 6th-round pick in 2017, he didn't really do much within his first 2 years of the NFL. It wasn't until year 3 that he became a full-time starter. Here are his numbers the first 2 years in his career. He played in 19 games, picked up 27 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and only had 1 quarterback hit. He did not sack a quarterback until year 3. This past year, Jones had his best statistical production season. He set a career high in tackles for loss with 7. It was second on the 49ers, tied for second with Dre Greenlaw. And then he had 3 sacks, which was tied for third on the team, both career highs. So it took 4 years for Jones to become the impactful defensive lineman that he is today. Kevin Givens, undrafted in 2019, was mostly on the practice squad, played in that week 17 game against the Seahawks and only played 10 snaps. But in those 10 snaps, he had a run stop on Marshawn Lynch, and he had 2 quarterback hurries on Russell Wilson. That's pretty darn good considering the fact that he only played 10 snaps and was making an impact on 3 of them. Although he did not play the majority of the 2019 season, he still had this hype around him because Brian Baldinger posted one of his famous Baldy breakdowns of Givens, who was dominant in the 2019 preseason. Fast forward a year later, despite there not being any preseason play, Givens didn't skip a beat as far as his development goes. He looked like a very competent NFL defensive lineman that is ready to contribute. His 2020 sacks, he played in 13 games, had 19 tackles, 7 pressures, 5 tackles for loss, tied for 5th on the 49ers, 3 quarterback hits, 2 knockdowns, and a fumble recovery and a sack. Those numbers that I just read off were better than any season Jones had early on in his career. And what's even more fascinating to me is Jones has played in 35 games in his career to Givens is 14. Yet their pass rushing efficiency is not even close. Pressure rates or total pressures accumulated since 2018. And remember, Jones has played in 21 more games than Givens. Jones has 12 pressures. Givens has 9. Quarterback hits. 6 for Jones, 6 for Givens. Quarterback hurries. 6 for Jones, 3 for Givens. And then the knockdowns we've seen Givens knock down the quarterback more than Jones over the course of the last 3 years. Those numbers are all according to Pro Football Reference. So despite playing 21 less games, Givens has basically exceeded, matched, or is close to matching all of Jones's pass rushing stats. The only area that's not particularly close is sacks, and that's the big one that everyone focuses on. Jones has 5 sacks, Givens has 1. But remember, Jones did not have a sack each of his first 2 years in the NFL, and these other pass rushing stats that I'm reading off give you a much better idea of efficiency. So it's clear to me that Givens is the superior pass rusher on the interior of the defensive line. There is absolutely no reason to bring back DJ Jones. So enter Givens in that starting lineup. He's a playmaker. He can make plays. 5 tackles for loss this year, had a huge game against the Los Angeles Rams on the road where he had a tackle on Darrell Henderson in the backfield early on in that game. He recovered a fumble that was forced by Jimmy Ward. And he hit Jared Goff on the pass that was intercepted by Javon Kinlaw in return for a touchdown. So looking ahead to 2021, Givens should have a significantly high bump in his playing time and ultimately give him more chances to make plays. So don't be the least bit surprised if Kevin Givens is the next defensive breakout player for the 49ers. Nick Newman, All 49ers Sports Illustrated. Give me a follow on Twitter at NinerNick_22.